hello, nice to be here with you. We're excited to bring a special guest from Motorola Solutions to talk about their recently achieved solution certification. Frederic Haegeman is the head of the Motorola Solutions security solutions, access control at Motorola. There's a lot going on there, and I know I probably butchered that, but I'll let you introduce yourself. But Motorola has been part of the Smart Building Collective for for about a year now. And we were originally introduced to their suite of technology from the Platinum certified building in Oslo that we did with Hathon. And I had the luxury of personally being there and having a tour of that building and really showing us the capability of that technology was awe-inspiring. So we really had to get in touch with Motorola and learn more about how they were doing things. And yeah, today we get to bring that knowledge to you through this discussion. So shall we start with Frederic? Welcome. Nice to have you here. Maybe first give a little bit of an introduction of you and your role. And let's start with, Motorola as a whole and where have you guys started moving towards this smart building program that you guys have created?
Very good, and thank you, Nicolas, for hosting me. Welcome, everybody. My name is, as Nicolas said, Frederic Haegeman. I look after access control solutions within the Motorola organization, and I do that for at global scale, with the exception of North America. Motorola has been, as many may know, and is still the leader for what we call radios, so the walkie-talkies that people say. Radios and the network of radios on how to steer that, which means that the majority of the customer base for Motorola is governmental or public. Motorola has seen that there is in technology a shift that is moving from what we call on-premise technology to more cloud-based technology. And Motorola has also appreciated that there needs to be an expansion of its customer base outside of the public space in order to guarantee the continuity of the company and making sure that it can go into growth. After a couple of assessments, it was quite obvious that the security space is an ideal area to not only leverage the technology evolution that is taking place, and on the other hand, to shift the revenue stream from mainly public into public and enterprise. So that's how Motorola basically came into the security space. And then within security, as mentioned, this technology shift that is going on from on-premise or server-based solutions, bringing it to cloud-based solutions was an element where Motorola very quickly realized that this is not typical on security. If you look at us, Motorola, everything we do internally, our processes are all cloud-based. We use the Google Suite. We use HR applications that are cloud-based. We use supply chain and ERP systems that are cloud-based. Everything is cloud-based. And we felt that our technology should also be cloud-ready and consequently provide all the benefits that come with it, which I think we will touch upon in a few minutes. So that's, in a nutshell, a background about me and Motorola's current strategy on how it is going to the market.
And tell us a little bit about that cloud-based shift that's happening. How far are we in that process, and what are you guys seeing in the market? Because I think when it started, the organizations were very fearful of putting their data up in the cloud, right? I mean, that was a very real concern for a lot of organizations. And Martin, actually, what's really funny from Hathon, he says now that there's so many clouds it's becoming quite cloudy. I love that sentence, that it becomes quite difficult to harmonize that data and bring that data, unifiably across one kind of platform. But what are you all seeing in the market? Is it 90% cloud? Is it, do we have a lot that say still I want it on premise? I know you guys have solutions for both, but
Yeah,
I'd love you.
yeah, that's true. We have solutions for both because we believe that there will always be certain segments of the market, or what we call verticals, that will remain with a solution that is limited to external network communication, so going into the WAN instead of the LAN. So therefore, you kind of need to respect that. But coming to your question on cloud, when you look at a Lambda company, they will have a lot of applications that are cloud-based, whether it's their office tools, whether it's their communication management, whether it's their process management. And very often they still have this little one cabinet with a server for the video or the access control, and an intruder panel, because intruder still needs to comply with a local security certification that is very well maintained by the industry of intruder detection manufacturers, but that's another topic. But at the same time, when you have an application that is, or a system that is server-based, it's quite expensive in maintenance. Not just the hardware infrastructure to run on it, but in today's world, the exposure to cyber weaknesses, right? To be compromised. And to what you're saying is, ultimately, what gets compromised is the data. So ransomware is coming into place. It may stop companies of being able to simply doing their activity on a daily basis because they are suffering from a cyber attack. Whereas when you have a cloud infrastructure, it comes with a couple of benefits. Benefit number one, you are normally having 99.9% uptime of your system. Benefit number two, you can scale it as you go, right? You are small, you want to stay small, that's fine. You want to grow, you can grow. You want to grow outside of your region and you want to do it elsewhere, it's very flexible. Benefit number three is that the cloud provider will have the necessary encryption and cyber protection in place to preserve your data, right? So when something would happen, it would not be because somebody has managed to find a breach in your server, but it would be like more on a bigger scale. We know some of the larger cloud infrastructure companies that are out there, and they cannot afford to have those kind of breaches. So cyber is their number one security and priority. Sorry. And then the other element that is quite important to notice is that with cloud, you have this flexibility to do more integrations between different applications, because if they are cloud-based and you have multiple that are cloud-based, you can then easily start using, whether it's an API, whether it's a webhook, whether it's a rule, a communication that goes in both ways between those, and you can optimize the power of the application that you have in your cloud. When it comes down to us, what we have seen is that, so the security industry is traditionally very traditional. So that means they don't like change. For people that are familiar with the security industry, when we go back from when video surveillance was analog to when it moved to IP, that was like, the world was collapsing for some manufacturers, some system integrators, and some end users. But ultimately, everybody's in agreement that IP was the way forward. And Cloud could probably be like a similar transition that we are undergoing, where what Motorola has done, and which in my opinion was very clever, we have done an acquisition, multiple acquisitions, but we have done an acquisition of a cloud native video manufacturer, a cloud native sensor manufacturer, and a cloud native access control manufacturer. So that means that you can kind of compare it with electrical vehicles compared to normal engine vehicles. The design from day one of those companies that have cloud video, cloud access, cloud sensors has been on a cloud logic, a cloud infrastructure. It doesn't take into consideration, I need a server, I need hardware, I need dependency if this processor or this board is failing, because it operates in another way and it has a separate logic. And that's where I believe today we stand out of the crowd. We have no dependency of it's hybrid or is this or that. And everything that we have designed comes with default encryption, whether it's like a TLS encryption, the same method that banks use for online payments that you and I do, or it's an AES encryption that people use for securing data. We also have put in place, because there is data sensitivity, as you mentioned, we have different options. Some of the data will stay on the device. So basically, it's not even leaving that infrastructure. Although there is a cloud connectivity to guarantee the redundancy, to guarantee the operations, to put in the intelligence and the analytics, but the data itself will stay there. Maybe some metadata will go back to the cloud. And then we also have data centra. If data needs to go out, that it will comply with GDPR regulation that we have in Europe or in the USA under the SOC 2 compliance. So by default, we have taken in all those factors to make sure that we can satisfy most of the people that have questions about it. And we have, subject to signing an NDA, we have the white papers to give you more insight on how we do this.
Nice. Absolutely. And what's interesting is, so, in our security module, we talk about physical security, which we'll talk about in a moment, and we talk about cybersecurity. So your digital infrastructure now needs to be secure as well, because there's data running through these things. And then it gets into the point of, when it comes to GDPR and these types of things, that not all data is created equal, right? I mean, with an air quality sensor, CO2 measurements, nobody really is going to care too much about that. If we talk about faces and we talk about credit card information and that type of stuff, it's a whole nother ball game. You guys are talking about pretty sensitive data, right? Because you guys are talking about access, you're talking about faces and camera footage, these types of things. So is there ever a time when on-premise is necessary now, or how do we, give people that comfort that indeed the cloud is enough, and is cloud enough, or is there ever a moment when a on-premise setup needs to be considered?
It's a very valid question. I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer the question. Being part of a technology company that is providing solutions, I would have a tendency to say that in today's world, there is probably not one single industry that justifies on-premise, for the very simple reason that a lot of data or all data that gets exchanged outside of the LAN of a customer site is encrypted in such a way that it becomes extremely complicated to find it, unless you have username password from a local person, an administrator, which would be the same if it's an on-prem system. when you look at our access control, we have asymmetric encryption. So that means that even if you manage to dismantle a certain string, whether it's a string on a user, whether it's a string on a site or on hardware, you cannot do anything with the string because it doesn't give you the total picture. On our video side, we change our encryption key every 6 hours. And that's an AES 256 encryption type. So by the time you have kind of figured out the encryption, there is already a new encryption key. And you know, one of the little anecdotes that we have is we have a customer that got hacked, and they managed to enter into their ERP system. They managed to enter into their HR system, and they managed to enter in all the security systems except with one, the cloud-based system they had.
Oh, wow.
So it's and the company was suffering quite some expenses every day, and it took them, I believe, it took them close to 10 days to be back up. So I know people will say critical infrastructure like water, like energy, like prisons. It should be a closed network. And it is true that you need to be very strict on how you do the security, but that is more about how you set the privileges and the user rights of the people rather than the system itself, because the system itself is, in a cloud environment, actually more secure than any on-premise because it's constantly up to date with any patches and security certificates that you need to put in there.
Really, really interesting. So, I mean, if we look at the Motorola technology suite for smart buildings, right? We have the access control, which is phenomenal, right? I think you guys have it so that you don't even need to pull your phone out of your pocket. You can just walk through doors. I think that in itself is very, very unique. And then you have a very advanced camera system that gives you all kinds of analytics and understanding of how spaces are being used. And now you've also recently added the Halo sensor, right, which is a climate sensor and occupancy management, air quality. Yeah, I can say a little bit more about the Halo sensor because it does so much that, yeah, if you could talk us through kind of those three suites and what makes them special would be pretty interesting.
Yeah. So thank you for asking it, because it's actually it's an exciting topic. The people that have started up the three companies that you mentioned, they had the philosophy that when people buy a video system, you take it for granted that your camera will do what every Lambda camera is doing. When people buy access control, people will assume that it will open the door and it will give user rights and so on. But what those companies thought of much further to say, what if we make that system far more powerful from an intelligence point of view or from an user friendliness point of view, right? Taking video as an example, why should a camera only be a camera if nowadays you can put analytics and intelligence on it so that it can also become a sensor? That your camera can do heat mapping, that your camera can do line crossing, that your camera can potentially do object counting, people counting, and a couple of other functionalities, so that ultimately you can use your camera to measure what I would call a business outcome in your operational activities on top of the security. Why in your access world say, okay, I need to open a door because I need access control? That you have people, everybody nowadays is having like a badge, but then imagine I work for a company that is having multiple offices. do I then have one badge, or do I need a badge and do I need a fob, or do I need two badges and or three badges, and when I go somewhere I forgot my badge or I changed car or whatever. Nowadays, people, all of us, we carry mobile phones. So let's put not only the badge on the mobile phone, but as you said, let's make sure that the mobile phone can stay where it is, in your purse, in your pocket, in your pants, in your hand. And you can simply walk to the door, you do a wave in front of the reader, and it will do an unlock based on a triple unlock technology that it carries. And that as well is encrypted. So it will make sure that the user is not only having their phone on them, because nowadays people, they go back home if they forgot their phone in the morning when they need to go to work. They may not do the same for a badge, but they will have the phone on them. So they will open the door in the correct way, and you have accuracy about people using their badge and being on the right premise. So that is that. Then the Halo sensor, which contains like 16 different types of sensors in one. It's like the camera that I mentioned, but without having the view of the room where it is in. It will detect, as you said, air quality. It will detect as well noise or sounds. It will detect like very popular is as well the vaping and the smoking and all of that. So it will make sure that companies can use it to comply with health and safety. That's one element. But it can also contribute to operational items that people may have. Let's say there are factory plants that have biohazard or that have chemicals, where you want to make sure that you can put the necessary security measurements in place without having to put a camera in and giving your employees a feeling that you're constantly monitoring them. You can still make sure that they get notification through the LED color that it brings, to the sound that it can capture, to the quality of air, and it can, through webhooks, communicate with the video system, with the access system. It can trigger an automatic lockdown or an unlockdown. It even has backnet, so it can go to an HVAC system to shut down the air conditioning or activate something else from emergency lighting, whatever it is, right? So the strengths are not just in that. It's the idea to say we want to make that our basis is we want to make a building more safer and secure, right? But we want to also make sure that the user experience for the person who comes into the site, the employee, that the user experience is in such a way that the security is not cumbersome, but that it's actually part of the journey to go to work. We want to make sure that the analytics and the intelligences that we have put in those three applications can contribute to the operational staff to make the system more efficient, more autonomous, and do actions that the human being would take like a lot of energy or a lot of resource to do, and consequently allow for integrations that give more efficiency to the building, to make it, you come in, so you batch in, you're batched in, it unlocks your access to the network. So you cannot be on the network if you're not physically in the building. Something silly, but very, very powerful. You can make sure that energy is only going on one floor as long as there is not 80% of that floor capacity, right? So you cannot go to the second floor unless the first floor is having its 80% capacity. So there is no need for energy on the second floor. Those kind of things. Automated messages for people. I'm an employee. I want to invite you, Nicolas, or you, Nicolas, you show up unexpectedly. To say, hey, Frederic, you have 5 minutes, I'm in the area, shall we have a cup of coffee? I take my mobile phone and I give you a guest pass. Saying, sure, Nicholas, you know what? I'll give you guest pass for the lobby door, the elevator door, and second floor meeting room 5. And you can come in autonomously, while still any activity you have done during that period of time will be attached to my credential, to my virtual badge. So there is clearly this audit trail to make sure that security is preserved, but the convenience and the user friendliness that it gives makes it like it's for you a pleasure to come and visit me, and for me it's a pleasure to host you, and we can have the meeting that we want to have, right? So it's, for us, it's connecting the dots on technology. That is, it's not just doing the security. We take that security should be there for granted. That doesn't mean that we are not undervaluing the importance of security. We will put all the security standards in place that any other manufacturer is having, and we even go above that. But the integration space that we put on top to make, not to make, but to give the possibility to the user or the operator to make it more efficient, to make it more smart, and to make it more interoperable with the building functionalities, will, in my opinion, result that the finance director of the building will be quite happy, because there is less maintenance to do on integrations, there is less complexity on having human resources to track information. Is this done? Is that done? And that's where it's, in my opinion, where the future is.
Absolutely. And I love that. And you gave us a lot of insight there. And I think it's a perfect segue to the SBC framework and how we've set it up. Because what we've done is we've created a number of modules, right, about building usage. How does a owner or a manager or a facility manager have control over how an asset is being used? We have one on building performance, which is exactly what you're speaking about, of having the device inform the BMS system to reduce energy and to optimize maintenance, these types of things. Indoor environment is about health and wellness, about air quality, about sound, about light. How do we have data to inform that? So you've already touched on that in a lot of ways. And then we have a module on safety and security, which is your bread and butter and where it came from. But I think that there's a lot there to pull out from how does it actually work for both the human side and the digital side. And then user behavior and collaboration is how does one interact with the building, but also interact with each other, find each other, work with each other. And you've already touched quite a bit on that access control. And all of that is brought together with what we call integrative design. And what we'd like to see is how can we, with the least amount of technology, maximize the value in all of those different areas. Because the challenge that we see right now in the last couple of years is we'll go into rooms, meeting rooms, and there'll be 5 sensors that are all doing the same thing, but they're doing it for a different stakeholder, right? And what we say often is it's right now technology is not our problem, it's not our challenge. The human enterprise change, the organizational change, how do you organize yourself and your process and how you're going to get the maximum benefit from these technologies? That's the bigger challenge. So I'd love to talk to you a little bit about that. But let's start with building usage and kind of how are you all informing companies or organizations to do this best, right? Because what we've seen as well, there was a case in the Netherlands last year or 2 years ago, even in a university. They had all kinds of cameras, and the students started ripping them off the walls because they said, "Oh, we don't want to be monitored or controlled." Whereas what you're talking about, this data can be actually quite useful for the users. And so where are you all in that journey, and how can you kind of help people understand from a building usage perspective how this technology is useful?
It's um, it's a challenge right now, to be very honest, in the sense that coming from the security industry, we are not by default used to speak to the right stakeholders that care about efficiency, that care about data, because typically our stakeholders would be involved with just security. And those security people may not have the same priorities when it comes down to the overall operations of a company, whether it's a university, whether it's a commercial real estate, whether it's a manufacturing, whether it's retail or others. So the journey that we are currently going through is to educate ourselves and educate our partners, to talk to different stakeholders within a company, where we can demonstrate that, using an expression of earlier in this conversation, is to say we are looking to help you solve operational problems through business outcomes that we provide. Can we, as an example, help you to say, oh, you are taking your example of a university. You're a university and you need to welcome X thousand new students in August or in September, and they need to have a student card. Are you then going to bring them all to the campus and give them manually one student card? And by the way, that student card gives them access to the library or to the labs or to this or to that or to the gym. Or are you planning to have a university app in which our app can be embedded, and all of a sudden it contains access control, it can give guest passes, you can do a remote unlock based on the rights you have, it can help for teachers to do lockdowns should there be an emergency requirement for that. Or you are in retail, and what if we say, you know what, you have this camera pointed to your cash till, and instead of saying to your cashier, this is to supervise you, which is maybe partially true, you know what, I will have some people counting logic in there that whenever there is more than 3 people queuing, it will automatically notify the store manager to say, you need to open a second cash till or another cash till in order to make sure that there is more nice client experience, because what the store manager cares for is to attract as many clients in his store, right? So people, they love what they buy in your store, but they also want to have a great customer experience going through the cash tills. So it's having the capacity to explain to either end users or channel partners with whom we operate to go to market, to say it's not just about how many megapixel our cameras having. It's not about, what is the size of our reader that we put on the wall. It's about what does it do for you on top of security, and how does that contribute again to make your operations more efficient. And this is exactly where we believe we excel in. But to your point, we are still in our early days on making sure that we touch the right audience when we talk to companies outside of the security people who typically have the budget for the investment.
Well, and we need to help them break down those silos, right? I think often what we see is that the security team is even sitting in a different place. It's a different team. It can even be a different company at times, where they're not interacting with the facility managers or HR or, the experience element. And I think that's an opportunity and a challenge for all of us to say, hey, you as an organization have bought this technology, you have it, you need to unlock some of its potential for other value cases. Because what we see in smart building right now, which is so exciting and encouraging and interesting, is that the only limits we have at the moment are our imagination and creativity when it comes to these value cases, you know, because we just the one that you mentioned about line management, you know, that's a fantastic one. Retail is also doing a ton of research and experimentation in eye tracking of where to put stuff based on where people are focusing their attention. You know, you can see nobody is looking at that rack of stuff. Isn't that interesting? But they're crowded over here at another one, you know, and it's those types of things and those types of data points that are fascinating from a usage perspective of how can we get better usage out of our spaces. Um, and so if we move to the next module and we talk about building performance, you've already touched on it, so we don't have to talk about it too much. But I think the Halo sensor gives a lot of data to your HVAC or your BMS system to do energy optimization, these types of things. Do you see other value cases in how your solutions are helping to enhance the performance of buildings?
Yes. So I think it's worth mentioning that everything we bring to market is something that, and I recognize what you said earlier. Our application doesn't need to run on the front of on the customer side, meaning you can have multiple sensors and you need to figure out which one is going to take the lead or which one is going to do the communication and what is best for the customer. Our applications can run on the background, can be embedded in the front application that the customer may want to have, whether it's like a data management application, whether it's like Splunk or any other, and we will simply provide the data points. It doesn't need to come with our own applications, whether it's web browsed or mobile phone based, right? So we follow the flow of the customer's infrastructure. But what we also like to put forward is that people should look at trying to understand what our technology does to transpose it to their operations. Give you an example. Today, it's becoming quite common that people are putting golf simulators out there in the field. Golf simulator in a supermarket, golf simulator at a golf course, golf simulator just in the city. So what we have with some of those manufacturers as a partnership is that we enable the whole simulator, which is like a prefab mini container, if I call it like that, without wanting to be disrespectful, but is it has a reader from us, an Alta reader, an Alta camera, and a Halo sensor. The reader will allow the client via an embedded app to receive a PIN code to open it up. The camera will be there from a security point of view, but will also do the people counting, or the Halo sensor will do the people counting. It will potentially shut down the system if there are too many people in there, because you don't want to have too many people playing around with clubs and swinging around or making sure that it could be damaged because they are simply overcrowded. The Halo sensor will make sure that the air quality is there, that there is no vaping, no smoking, or any other toxic elements that may go in there. But not only that, it will also detect aggression, or it will be sensitive to light levels. If there would be like flashlights all of a sudden in there, it will detect and give the necessary messaging or alarms. So what I want to say is, we are explaining to those manufacturers to say, look, those are elements that you can do. You need to figure out for yourself, is that an element that you value, yes or no, right? With our access control, you can provide guest passes. You can be, as an access user, partitioned into multiple sites or single sites. So we go to gym management companies and say, look, you want to give a gym membership and you need access control in there because you don't want to have it by PIN, because I have a PIN, I give the PIN to you, Nicolas, and then you go in my place and so on. So the revenue gets diluted for the gym company. So having, for instance, a camera at the entrance, having halo sensors in the gym itself, if you say, I don't want to put video surveillance into the gym, right? And having the access control there, you can not only make sure that the air quality remains nice in your gym, so not too much smell of sweat or others, but you can as well make sure that if somebody would be putting a shout out of help or alarm or whatever, that it would be captured and it would trigger a follow-up action. Your camera could do some people counting, could do some heat mapping of what's going on outside of the gym itself, whether you have a juice bar or whether you have the showers, things like that. And the access control would simply use your phone to get in, because on your phone you may have your membership card, right? But based on the tier membership you pay, maybe I can pay a VIP pricing, and that allows me to come in with 2 people or to go to 5 different gyms in my region instead of only 1 gym. So not only does our solution allow to maintain safety, security, and do a little bit more on top of that, which then is correlated to energy again, because the camera and the halo sensor, which I mentioned, could be either connected to the HVAC system or to the energy system for the gym to make sure that the light balance is right, the number of people and so on, the hour of the day, etc., etc. But the gym owner, they can leverage our solution to upsell services and to say, oh, you want to have premium pack? I can easily add those premium features for you by just a few clicks in the Alta solution, right? So your security suite is not only becoming a cost of investment, but it becomes an enabler for additional revenue, whilst making sure you have good safety, good security, and better energy management.
I I I love that insight, right? Because I think that that's exactly what we're trying to beat the drum of smart buildings, is that if you're creative and you're you know what you want and you know how your business should operate, then the technology becomes an enabler for that. And unfortunately, what we see a lot is that technology gets put in, and then they say, "Oh, we didn't get the value from that technology," and it's because there wasn't any, real, deliberate process or program put in place to change the enterprise to use it in a meaningful way. And so I think it goes hand in hand, and developers and real estate owners are starting to realize that there's a bigger piece to this puzzle that has to be done effectively in order to get the value out of these smart things. And I think you've hit on building usage and performance and environment so well. But I do want to give you a chance to tell us about the security functionality, right? I remember talking to Martin again from Hathon, and they had somebody who left the door open at night, and somebody came in, and he got an alert on his phone that said somebody had, penetrated the building, and then the camera system literally just showed him exactly where this person moved through the building and what they took and then what they left, and it ended up taking a pack of coffee and a table, a side table, and that's what they took from this beautiful building, which was so fascinating. But he had peace of mind because he knew exactly what that person had done when they were there. And yeah, I'd love you to give a little bit of inspiration of what the security system is capable of doing now.
Yeah, yeah. We should almost forget talking about the security functions because it does so much outside of it. And uh, it is true that when you are let's say, an operator or an administrator of the security system, whether you are part of the security organization or the IT organization or the building management organization, or we work with mobile apps that you can have on your phone. But again, because it's cloud based, you can basically access the application from anywhere, anytime, as long as you have an internet connection, right? But on the mobile phone with the apps, what we do is we provide push notifications to the operators or the administrators based on rules or alarms that they have set. Right? I'll give you an example. In the Nordic countries, it's very much a habit that if you access a site within working hours, you enter the site through a one-factor authentication. So that means that one factor could be a badge, could be a mobile, could be a PIN, could be a fingerprint. One factor of you is used to go in. And after working hours, it would be two-factor authentication. So that means that you would need to give maybe a badge and a PIN, or you need to do your mobile credential that you have. In our example, it would be mobile credential plus opening your phone. You don't need to go into the app, but the little lock of your phone needs to open, and it will use the biometrics that you and your phone have as a relationship to take that as a second factor to open the door. So you can make that dynamic in the sense that, okay, for everybody using two-factor authentication, I want to have a little picture as an administrator because I want to know who goes in after working hours, because that's kind of uncommon, it's exceptional, and I want to respect security. To the example that you had is we will do detection of people on those cameras, and we make our search easy. So what we are very sensitive to is we like to bring in artificial intelligence and analytics in everything we release, not only for detection, but also for forensics. So you want to have an alarm, you will get your alarm. Your alarm will give you already the necessary sequence of visuals that you are linking to it. And then afterwards, if you want to search it, it will be equally easy. So there are a lot of examples, actually, Nicolas, that I could give that would probably take too much time. But what we very often say to people is, if you have a case scenario that is of value to you, that is for you like a problem statement, our recommendation is, let's do what we call a proof of concept. You say, what is your problem statement? We will, within reason, provide equipment and provide the application for a limited duration of time. We'll do a configuration to see if we can detect your problem statement, and then you can play around with yourself to see, is that an improvement of my problem statement, yes or no? That problem statement can be related to security, as you are bringing up, but it can also be on safety. It can be on operations. It can be on humans. It can be on objects. It can be on anything that is of value to your organization. So it is. I will not say it's limitless, but it's very vast, right? And that's also why we value so much the partnership with, like you, the Smart Building Collective, is because we like to expose ourselves into segments of people that are not necessarily looking at security as an enabler for something, but more as a cost burden. to say, hey, there is more behind it. So that is one element. And the other element is similar to the two large mobile phone platforms, Android and iOS. We have created our own app store. And in our app store, which is now over 100 apps, we have apps that relate to identity management, very, very useful, parking management, gym management, tenant management, space management, leisure management, elevator management, and so on and so on and so on, so on, visitor. So, and every week new apps are coming in. And the reason I mention that is because for us, it's truly important that people realize when it comes down to security, we are there. But then when it comes down to the intelligence of making the building smarter or the people smarter, we can put all of that in the background through an app and filter it through another platform that the customer prefers to use. So yeah, for us, the example that you brought up with Hatton, for us, that's a normal functionality, right? I think when you have a breach of your security because a door was left open, or people are doing tailgating. So tailgating is one person is badging, but two people go in, right? All of those things that should be identified and detected automatically. That's part of our basic offering, you know.
Yeah. Incredible. And I think the couple takeaways that I take from this call is that you guys have quite a solution suite that supports so many different aspects of what the framework covers and what smart buildings can and should do. And it's quite flexible. There's a lot of modules there, different ways to think about it. And as a developer, as a facility manager, as an owner, thinking about what you're trying to do and then bring in the technology to make that happen. And then Motorola is open to run tests with you and to try things specific to your value cases and within reason, of course, but to really help you solve those challenges and those issues. I'll give you the last word, but I want to say thank you so much for your support and your time and giving us these incredible insights of your business and what you're doing. I think it gives all of our audience a ton of ideas of things that they can do within their building with your technology or without even. But thank you so much for this this session. It's been very, very interesting for me, but also for the audience.
My pleasure. Thank you so much as well for this partnership, because that's exactly what we are interested in doing, and we feel there is so much more that we could bring to your network, and we'd love to do so. Thank you so much for the partnership and for this pleasant coffee chat.
Absolutely. We look forward to the next years to come. I think as we get better and better at this stuff, more and more research, more and more interesting things. Some of the things we're working on now is more on the human side as well, the biology side, thinking about neurodiversity and how different personalities and different types of people interact with buildings. So imagine when you get that and the hard data, those two things to come together, the future looks very, very exciting and very bright.
Absolutely.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.